This is the so-called takings clause in the Fifth Amendment. It enshrines your right to private property without undue government interference. Traditionally, takings for public uses included highways, schools, and other government-owned and operated projects. But in 2005, the Supreme Court turned that notion of public use on its ear.
Economic development, the payment of higher taxes or the creation of more jobs is now a public use under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, a very dangerous precedent that the court set. But as I mentioned, that has led to this this backlash against what I think it's fair to call the most universally despised Supreme Court decision, perhaps in its history.
My name is Susette Kelo, and the government stole my home.
Susette Kelo is an American hero. She is a woman who stood up for her rights and in the process stood up for the rights of all Americans. She was a homeowner in New London, Connecticut that simply wanted to keep something that was incredibly valuable to her, the first home that she ever owned.
For Susette Kelo and her neighbors, that Supreme Court decision was a profound disappointment that capped an exhausting legal battle.
Over 10 years ago, I was lucky enough to find a great deal on a house with a terrific view of the Thames River, the Long Island Sound, and the Atlantic Ocean in New London, Connecticut. I spent every spare moment fixing it up and making it the kind of home I had always dreamed of. I'm sure you've heard the expression, location, location, location. Well, this was the wrong location, only I didn't know it yet.
Just after Susette Kelo bought her little pink house in 1997, the Pfizer Corporation announced it would build a massive new research facility in Kelo's Fort Trumbull neighborhood. The City Council approved plans in January of 2000 to help Pfizer acquire the land it wanted in New London. The plan made dramatic use of eminent domain, and it was all in accordance with state law.
The group that had the power, I think, also had some arrogance. And I think they understood that the law did, as the law was written in Connecticut, they did have the power to do what they were doing, as wrong as it seems. And as long as anybody was going to challenge them or fight them, they were going to enforce the law and exercise it no matter what. And I think the more the homeowners dug their heels in, the more the people with the power dug theirs in and said, well, we'll show you.
The homeowners who wanted to stay were served with eviction notices the day before Thanksgiving in 2000, but the legal battle between the Fort Trumbull residents and the city continued for 5 more years.
The Supreme Court has agreed to decide if governments can seize people's homes and businesses for economic development projects.
The High Court heard the case in 2005, and it was to be the most despised Supreme Court decision in many, many years.
What the Supreme Court basically said was our land was only our land until someone else could make better use of it and pay more taxes.
Justice Sandra Day O'Connor wrote in her dissent, "The fallout from this decision will not be random. The beneficiaries are likely to be those citizens with disproportionate influence and power in the political process, including large corporations and development firms." Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in his dissent, "Something has gone seriously awry with this court's interpretation of the Constitution."
If there's anything that I think should take high priority in America, it is the protection of private property.
This is something every American and certainly every member of Congress can identify with.
Reaction to the 5-4 decision was immediate and forceful.
As a result of the Supreme Court's unbelievable ruling, a majority of the states have passed legislation offering more protection to American property owners.
They certainly felt the pressure of the public. I mean, a lot of legislators told me as I was talking to them and lobbying for this legislation throughout the country that they've never had phone calls like they did in reaction to any court decision, whether it's from the Supreme Court or any other court.
The reason this case became what it is today isn't because the Supreme Court said 5-4, you can do this. It's because how the general public across the United States reacted to that decision.
And though it may be a small consolation, the project that cost Susette Kelo her home has essentially gone nowhere.
3 years later, Kelo's house has been torn down and the lot where it once stood is vacant. In fact, Real Clear Markets reports that there is no new construction in the area because the city-sponsored developer has been unable to secure financing because interest in the project is minimal.
There is absolutely no new construction in that area whatsoever.
And there's nothing there, nothing at all.
They haven't built a thing. They've knocked a lot of things down, but they haven't built anything. And as far as job creation, job stimulus, the only jobs that have been generated there have been for demolition crews.
There were 78 houses there, 78 taxpaying residents. Now there's nothing there. There's certainly no taxes.
There's likely to be no new development in that area anytime soon.
All it is now is a dust bowl, really, and I really hope they choke on the dust.
I think ultimately the Supreme Court will hear this issue, and I think they will reject Kelo. I think Kelo is one of those decisions, like Plessy versus Ferguson and Korematsu, the case that upheld the internment of Japanese citizens, is destined to be overturned. And I think it's only a matter of time before that happens.